Hello and welcome to episode 33 of Charlotte Mecklenburg History with Dan Morrill. Today is Sunday, November 22nd, 2020, and I am Dan's daughter, Mary Dana. I'm here with Dan through Zoom. Hey, Dad. Good to see you. Nice goofy wave there. It's kind of wacky.
Yep, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And today, he is going to be talking about some current projects that Preserve Mecklenburg is working on. And he's also going to talk about some properties in Charlotte that have been lost, that were not saved, to talk about how important it is to support historic preservation. Okay, Dad, so take it away.
Okay. What I have up, well, first of all, good afternoon to everybody. Glad you're here. Glad Mary Dana's here. Glad we're all here.
Yes,
Telephone
thanks.
might ring while we doing this. If it does, this is a very informal environment, so we don't worry about that.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about Preserve Mecklenburg in terms of current projects, as Mary Dana mentioned. We put out a monthly bulletin, and if I'll show you my email address again when we get to the bottom of this page, but if you would like to be on the mailing list for this bulletin so that you'll know exactly what we're doing, I already sent it to people who have given some money to Preserve Mecklenburg. They
The
automatically.
members, right? So
Yes,
right.
yes. But if you would like to get it, just email me. And of course, I'd love for you to give us a donation too, because it's the only way we survive. But anyway, let me go over this, and I'm going to try to be somewhat quick about this. One of the things that we have been dealing with is Cedar Grove, which is an 1833 plantation house, which is up near Huntersville. And I've talked about this before, and I thought we were going to be, we did have, as a matter of fact, a option to purchase this property. But happily, that's not going to have to happen because another preservation solution is being investigated, and I think it has great hope for success. And that is to make this a bed and breakfast, event center, tie it in with other cultural amenities nearby, including a rail trail and also a greenway. And so we have, at the request of the owner, because at least for now they do not wish to sell it, we have terminated our option to purchase. But Preserve Mecklenburg was absolutely fundamental in bringing together all of the people that are really participating in this. So we certainly were active. And by the way, you'll notice that there are hyperlinks on these properties that will take you to a history of it. So not only by getting the bulletin do you get the property, but you can also get an extensive essay. And, you know, those of you who have students in school, or particularly those of you who are educators, this could be a great tool for you, simply to be able to really get students engaged in some local history stories. And of course, that's one of the advantages of local historic resources. You don't have to get on an airplane to go see them. They're right here in our midst. Really exciting news about the Patterson Grocery. I think some of you know that we actually bought this property. We have about $116,000 invested in it, which is a big investment for Preserve Mecklenburg, believe me. And the reason we bought it was very simple. Everybody else was going to tear it down, and it is under contract. The first contract fell through. We got another one on board. They've already sent in their due diligence money. It's much more serious. And also, they have a vision for this property that is very interesting. Of course, this would have to be post-COVID, but they want to make this into a coffee house, which would be a great asset for the community, bringing neighbors together, attracting neighborhoods into Washington Heights off the Beatties Ford Road corridor. We, of course, would put a preservation easement on it to assure its preservation in perpetuity. So that's really very, very exciting news.
Yeah, that is exciting.
And again, you can click on that hyperlink down there at the bottom and you'll get a nice essay on the history of the house or the store building. Been talking a lot about the Knowlton Shaw house, and there have been some major breakthroughs there. The developers who have bought the property, and they are going to do infill development, and they're going to restore this house, and they're also going to accept a preservation easement. I think some of you know that among the people who owned this house was Victor Shaw, who was the mayor, and his daughter did the McManaway statue on Queens Road. We mentioned that before. And the Historic Landmarks Commission, because this is an historic landmark, has had to review the development plans, and they have basically approved the design, configuration, placement of the cottages that will be placed in the rear portion of the property. So that was a real breakthrough. The Mcnitch house on Sharon Lane, I've mentioned this before, Mary Dana said that you drive by it all the time.
That's true.
This is also moving very. We have gotten approval from the Historic Landmarks Commission for the placement and design of new houses on the front lawn and also to the side of the house. The owner has agreed to a preservation easement to give safety to the house, which could have been destroyed with 1 year delay if the owner had applied for it, but the owner, of course, wanted to work with us on preservation. This should close within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, that's
in other
soon.
words,
Okay.
a new buyer should come forth. And interestingly enough, it's the same buyer that is buying the Shaw House. And this is going to be a major development. And it's going to be so exciting over the next few months to go and take photographs and do videos and do all kinds of goody stuff about seeing what gets developed there. I think it's going to be a very handsome development. And again, you can click on a full history of Frank Ramsey's house, Frank Ramsey Mcnitch's house. Lord knows we've talked about him, Prohibition, great
Yes.
speaker, deeply religious, Second Presbyterian Church. We did so much, and that's going to play into why I think it's important to keep these houses. Talked about the Mays house. This is on Moorhead Street across from the YMCA. This is not a done deal yet. And I tell you, the Historic Landmarks Commission, and more specifically, its executive director, Jack Thompson, deserves a great deal of credit for this. He has brought a developer into the picture who we believe is going to buy this house. He's going to get a big tax deduction because he's going to donate basically some development rights that he would have because of the existing zoning. But the most important thing is he's going to keep the house where it is, and it's going to be preserved. And we have our fingers crossed, but we are very excited about the fact that this house will be preserved. The Edgewood Farm, we've talked about Edgewood Farm a good bit up on Eastfield Road in North Mecklenburg. And again, that one is the rezoning. We thought it was approved, but it got mired up because of a technical mistake by the planning staff, quite frankly. But it's going back for approval in January. And again, that's going to be incorporated into an infill development with a preservation easement. This is an 1850s plantation house with an earlier log house lived in by members of the Davidson family. And again, it's just keeping the artifact there. That's what it is. This is really interesting. You know, I talked before, remember when we were doing the podcast on modernist history, on modernist
Yes.
architecture, and we mentioned Murray Wisnett. You might remember Murray Wisnett.
Yes, I
We
do.
also had a full podcast on Jack Pentis, who was a major commercial artist in Charlotte, and really a major breakthrough in the last week. You know, I've said so many times before, really what makes the key difference in any of these projects is the attitude of the owner. Well, I got word last week that the owner wants to have a preservation easement on this property. It's going to be sold. It's going to be marketed. Preserve Mecklenburg might well be in a position of being the entity that's going to market this building. And as I've told you before, and I indicated before, the thing that I really like about this building, you know, a lot of people, they are totally carried away by looking at something and it's just eyewash. And they either like the way it looks or they don't like the way it looks. And to a lot of people, because this is, quote, an unusual building, they're not going to think it's very handsome. But to me, the thing that is really the most remarkable thing about this building is twofold. First of all, it really is environmentally sensitive. I talked about that before, that it has a gravel parking lot. And look at all these trees that are saved on that lot. And if you go around and look at everything on South Boulevard, and this is off South Boulevard on Hill Road, just north of I-485, they cut down all the trees, put in parking lots. It's one car dealership, one fast food restaurant after another one, you know, barf, barf, barf. And of course, there's nowhere for a squirrel to go. There's nowhere for anything to go. Well, this is really a great, great, great building. And they are going to accept a preservation easement, which Preserve Mecklenburg will hold. And we will do both design review over material alterations to the property. And also we, of course, will have to approve any demolition that might occur. So here again, you know, if it weren't for Preserve Mecklenburg and if it weren't for what we were doing, it would just be unbelievable. Well, you know, I've got to say something about the Elizabeth Lawrence Garden. Mary Dana and I were absolutely overwhelmed by the response that we got to the podcast that I did last week.
Yes, that's true.
I think we got over 600 hits on this,
Yeah.
and that's more than any. That even beats Eastover.
Yeah, that's more than any other podcast
and you
we've
know
ever done.
what that says to me. You know, gardens are human creations. Believe me, if everything, you know, there's a term called the built environment. And people say, well, what's the built environment? Think about the earth being here and everything being here from human beings, but human beings. Think about how it would look. And then put human beings in, and that's the built environment. What human beings have done to the earth. That's it. And clearly, one of them are these gardens. They're not natural creations. I told you last week they're illusions. They're like puppets. They're like Bert and Ernie. In fact, me and Dana,
Yes.
where are Bert and Ernie? Where'd you
They're
put them?
here. They're here at my house.
I want Bert and
Oh,
Ernie
geez.
puppets.
All right, hold on.
I want them back here. You gonna go? Oh my gosh, I'm getting so excited. She's going to get one of the puppets. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is really terribly, terribly exciting. But let me just say, while Mary Dana is coming back, that where are they, Mary Dana?
Okay, I'm back with Bert and Ernie.
No, where are they? Let me see Bert and Ernie. And see, these are
Here
illusions.
they are.
See, Bert kind of sounds like this. And Ernie kind of sounds like, hi, Bert. Hi, Bert. How you doing, buddy? Big buddy, baby. And the guys sound like that and move their mouths, man, Dana.
Oh my gosh, Dad, you're really like getting into it here. I know my dad used to do puppet shows with these when I was a little girl.
Well, the
And
thing
so
is,
we
these
still
aren't
have them
real. You know, they're
here.
funny.
Now I'm moving their
Yeah,
mouths.
see, they're moving the mouth. See, now the people would say, "Oh, look, you can fool little kids. You know, they think they're real." Well, these gardens are like those puppets. They're wonderful. They're glorious, but they're human creations, just like Ernie and Bert are human creations.
Okay, there's
Now,
our
that
show and
I
tell for today.
definitely want you to bring them to my house because I've missed them.
Oh, geez.
Um,
Okay, I'll return them to your house.
but just to tell you, nothing really has happened except, you know, the board of Winghaven is really going to be an important player in this in terms of deciding what they think is the best way to proceed. I don't know whether Preserve Mecklenburg will be involved or not, but I have approached a developer about uh, perhaps buying the property and working with us on some very sensitive designs for a residence on the property that would respect the Winghaven. So that's that. Now, of course, I'm going to get to this when we get to the thing I was talking about. I've already talked about the Patterson grocery store, and the breaking news I've already given you, which was that it's gone under contract, which is really really great. Okay, now I want to talk about lost properties, and well, before I do that, let me go down and just show you. There's my email address, danmorrill2 at gmail.com. So if you want to have this bulletin, just send me an email and I'll be glad to see. It comes out every month. And it just keeps you up to date on what Preserve Mecklenburg is doing. Now let's talk about skyscrapers, Mary Dana. Skyscrapers were made possible by steel framing because the walls of a skyscraper are curtain walls, meaning they don't support any weight. They simply cover up a steel frame. The weight is carried by a steel frame. When you had to depend upon masonry walls to hold up the walls of a building, 6 stories was about as high up as you could go. And an architect by the name of Louis Sullivan, very famous architect, sort of the mentor of Frank Lloyd Wright in a way, but Louis Sullivan, who was in Chicago in the late 1800s, came up with this scheme for skyscrapers. Now, what is a skyscraper? Well, a skyscraper is in part a symbol of progress. It's a symbol of power. If you think about it, one of the things that most cities do when they want to advertise themselves, and by the way, I saw where U.S. News and World Report has listed Charlotte as the 6th best place to move to in the United States of America. We're number 6. But one of the things they'll do is take a picture of the skyline. You know, if you say, you know, you want to know Seattle, Dallas, I don't care what city, Atlanta, Miami, usually they're going to take a picture of the skyline. And the skyscraper in many ways is the symbol of urbanity, okay? And also, and therefore some people call them totem poles. You know, they inspire people. They are symbols of power. They're symbols of almost worship in a sense. Well, now the man in the middle, I hope some folks who have watched earlier podcasts can recognize that face and that man. That man is Daniel Augustus Tompkins. And I've told you before that Dan Tompkins, I would say, is the single most important figure in Charlotte's economic development since the Civil War. Yes, even more important than Hugh McCall, or more important than James B. Duke. Tompkins. He came here in 1883. And the reason I mentioned Tompkins, he was the one who put together the deal to buy the lot to put this skyscraper on. Now, I didn't have time to look at the exact year. It's the first decade of the 20th century. It was originally known as the Realty Building, Realty. Later, it was called the Independence Building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I really kind of made a fool of myself over this building.
I remember.
And I worked like a blooming dog to try to convince people that they ought to save this building, because the Realty Building, the Independence Building, was the first skyscraper built in the two Carolinas. And when it was built, it was by far and away the tallest building. And people were absolutely amazed that it was the tallest building in the two Carolinas. And people were absolutely amazed when they went to the top of it. They just thought it was stupendous. Well, I dealt with a man from Union County named Leroy Rushing, who owned this building. But really, in a way, it was the Bank of America that really saw to it that this building was taken down. And the reality is that if they had kept this building and maybe incorporated it into a larger complex, they could have given something that really makes an urban space dynamic and really makes life dynamic.
It was right on the square, wasn't
Right
it?
on the
Uptown?
square, right on the northwest corner of the square. Absolutely.
At Trade and Triumph.
They would have had a sense of continuity. See, the thing, I mean, look, we human beings, we're so incredibly vulnerable. One thing that this COVID-19 has made people aware of is, we thought we were just in charge. We were on top of everything. And, hubris was reigning supreme. We were preening like a blooming eagle. And we could lick anything. We could do anything. Well, let's face it. This isn't our world. The virus is more at home than we are. And, it's just a reality. And, the only thing really that sustains human culture is the historical narrative. And these buildings, as I've said before, are artifacts. And, they blew it up.
Yeah, I remember they blew it up.
They blew it up. And, I watched the thing go whack down. And, people say, well, we don't want to stand in the way of progress. Well, but what you really lose are the stories. You lose the fact that this was the first skyscraper in the Carolinas. You lose the fact that it was a symbol of what Charlotte really was aspiring to be, which was a city of the New South. You lose the identification of Daniel Tompkins with that particular building. All those stories go away. But now let me tell you the other one I probably even made a bigger fool of myself over.
This Masonic really Temple.
Now let me talk about, this was on South Tryon Street. Let me talk about the Masonic Temple. I'm going to start to the left and go across. You remember our talking about Charles Christian Hooke, this prolific architect.
C.C. Hooke, yeah.
C.C. Hooke, and we dealt with his tragic death, and we dealt with all the buildings that he did. We did all those houses in Dilworth and all that business.
The fire stations.
The fire station. Oh yeah. Oh, fire station number 6. Well, he was the architect for this building. Now, this is what's called Egyptian Revival architecture. Now, I went back to this. I can tell you right now that until this building was it wasn't blown up. They knocked it down with a big old ball.
Okay.
And
A wrecking ball.
yeah, and it was the late 80s when they did it.
Yeah, I remember.
But again, a lot of people's attitudes about it. You know what they tore it down for?
A parking lot?
No, the First Union, Ed Crutchfield, may he rest in peace. He basically tore this building down. First Union tore it down.
What's there now?
A place for people to munch on hot dogs as they sit in a chair at a table. An open space, a people place.
There's just a courtyard there.
Yeah, it's just a courtyard. Anyway, before it was torn down, anybody who was an architectural historian who came to Charlotte, I didn't even have to say anything. I would take them up Tryon Street, and they wouldn't notice anything about the big steel frame skyscrapers of today. They would drop their teeth when they saw this building. Because Egyptian Revival architecture is rare, partly because it's considered to be so doggone ugly. And it lasted the longest with the Masons, because of course the Masons had part of their narrative story goes back to the building of the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a sense of association with Egypt. And Egyptian Revival architecture got to be popular in the early 19th century, early 1800s. And it largely was because of the Rosetta Stone and hieroglyphics, and Napoleon sent archaeologists to Egypt, and there was a big deal about Egypt. And so it got to be popular in the early 19th century, but it really only endured largely because of the Masonic movement. Well, again, you think about what they did when they tore this down. I mean, first of all, from purely an academic architectural significance, this is of the highest significance. Now you can see one of the elements there of the towers, and I forgot those towers have representation. But I want you to look at the picture on the right. You know where that is, Mary Dana?
No.
That you can go there. They're in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
So those two pillars took them to Rock Hill.
In other words, Rock Hill had enough sense at least to save a couple of the columns. Charlotte didn't have enough sense. They just got rid of all of it. Blast it out. Whack it down.
But Rock Hill took the columns.
I mean, I can tell you right now, if this building had been preserved, I can tell you that it would have gained greater and greater and greater significance. And here's one of the things that's true when you lose these buildings. See, politics quests for compromise. That's why abortion is such a horrible political issue. You either kill the fetus or you don't. I mean, there's no compromise. You can't, and the same thing's true with, if you totally destroy the building,
you
don't have the building.
Yeah,
it's gone. But when you do destroy the building, now this one, talking about stories. Now this was one that caused me all kinds of
coffee cup. I remember that too.
Now this was off West Morehead Street. Let me tell you the story here. But by the way, how am I doing on time?
Oh, about 30 minutes.
Well, Mary Dana, we all know, and I'm not trying to say anything but the truth. I try to tell the truth. One of the great challenges in our country, even today, as we all know, is trying to find unity between people of different races. I mean, it's just the truth. And you know as well as I do, I heard I saw something on TV a couple of days ago. I think it was on WSOC. They were holding some thing about the fact that they had this African American woman on, and she was saying, we just need together to find out how we can overcome the divide. And I've been hearing that for 50 years. I mean, literally.
Sure, I know.
That's not to say it's not a real issue. It is a real issue. Well, let me tell you what the coffee cup, it was basically run by African Americans. It was a little diner that was off West Morehead Street.
Mm-hmm.
At least it was run by African Americans before it was demolished. And it was one of those places in Charlotte. It's kind of like what's that? Chicken coop.
Oh yeah, chicken coop.
Now you could sit down in the coffee cup, but you know how all people, black people, white people, all people go to chicken coop. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you go in there, all kinds of people mix. Well, that was the way this place was. People of black people and white people went to eat at the coffee cup.
All races of people
All
there, right?
races, all races
All
went to eat at
ages,
all
all
ages, all
right.
rages, because what it said on the side was true. It's good food.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was just old Southern home cooking. So much of the Southern cuisine is basically African American cooked, good old collard greens. Love collard greens, man. Anyway, now the man on the right, this is a real story. That's Joe Martin.
Yeah.
You knew his family. You knew his daughter.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Now, Joe Martin was the brother of Jim Martin, who, among other things, was governor of North Carolina. And Joe Martin was an official with North Carolina National Bank, which was in NCNB, now Bank of America. Wonderful man.
Yeah,
Wonderful
he
man.
was.
Good man. Good man. Well, Mary Dana, human life is full of tragedy. And he developed ALS. Now, that's Lou Gehrig's disease. And that's Joe on the left, and that is his son on the right. And they're sitting in the coffee cup. And Joe was a big advocate for racial togetherness, for the harmony of all people. I mean, if there was anybody who was a champion for that, it was Joe Martin. Even after he became tragically afflicted with ALS, and ALS just literally causes somebody to just sort of wither away. And you can see Joe's there with a smile on his face. And the coffee cup was a place he said people ought to go and come together and meet people of the other race. So the coffee cup was more than just a building. It was a symbol of an idea. And therefore, it's not just the architecture as with the Masonic temple. And it's not also the responsibilities and contributions of major figures like D.A. Tompkins.
Mm-hmm.
But buildings can have an associative history that really is more a place of harmony and bringing people together. Now, we tried, Mary Dana.
I
But
know.
there it is, right there.
I remember.
And you think, well, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? What difference does it make? Well, you know, the thing is, these, as I've said so many times before, these are artifacts. They are artifacts. They are things that exist that teach us about the past and teach us lessons for the future. So what we're involved in trying to preserve things is important work. It's important business. How does it make you feel when you see that bulldozer whacking the coffee cup down?
It makes me sad.
And you know, a lot of people said, who cares? It's not really a fancy building. Well, of course, you know, I'm a preservationist, so
I
not
was
that
gonna
I
say
don't
I'm
think,
a little biased from being your daughter, but
well, but it's not a matter of being biased. Bias means that you're, that bias means that you have sort of an unwarranted attitude. I
well,
mean, I think, well, now, the Excelsior Club has great meaning for the African American community. And well, how I'm on time now?
oh well, yeah, you've been talking about 38 minutes, I think. 30.
Well, you know, I've made my point. The Excelsior Club, I could talk about that. I told you we're saving the grocery store.
Yes,
So
that's
see,
exciting.
that's not going to get that. The grocery store is not going to have what happened to it up there. No bulldozers going
Is
in
the
there.
Excelsior Club going to be saved?
Sort of.
Okay.
It's really not. I mean, they are going to try to retain elements of it. It might have somewhat of its presence to the street. And I think that's about the best they could do. And I commend them for that. Here's the McConnell House, which was on Beatties Ford Road. It's the Landmarks Commission. We couldn't do anything because of the owner. Martin Marietta, who owns the quarry, they wouldn't. They'd let somebody move it.
Yeah,
The only
but I
thing
know
that
it's
made economic
unreasonable.
sense was keeping it where it was. Now the Robert Greer House, oh God,
Is that the black and white picture? The Robert Greer?
yeah, that's this. Let me tell you, I can't prove it. Let me tell you what I know. Then I'm gonna end.
Okay.
I got a call when it was being processed for historic landmark designation by the owner, and
Where
he
was
said,
it?
"Guess what? It was on
Where's
the Matthews Weddington Road.
okay. Okay, I'm sorry. So he said what?
It
Guess
built in the
what?
18. It was pre-Civil War,
Hmm.
and the owner said, "Oh, guess what? It just burned down."
Oh,
I'll make no more comments beyond that. I can't. But you know, preservation is important business. We're saving the Shaw. Here's the Edgewood deal with Latta Home that stood on East Boulevard. Kaboom.
it's gone.
Oh,
Right. Okay.
right. We did save the George E. Davis
Yes,
house.
I remember
Remember
we
we
talked
talked
about
about?
that.
See, all those things make a difference. So, Mary Dana, I'm through. But I want people to make a donation. You know, come on, people. You know, I know it's tough, and I know things aren't easy. But come on, you can do something to help us out, and that would just be. I'm not going to try and do it. preservemec.org/donate. You can make a donation
Yes,
and
please
go
become a member.
become a member and look at our websites, you know, and look at our bulletins and look at what we do.
And you have a
So, Mary
link
Diana,
says click here to donate, right?
that's
That
right.
works, right?
That's
Okay.
right. That'll take you. That'll take you right. That'll take you right to it, and then you make your donation right there. Donate now.
Okay. Well, everybody,
And listen,
thanks. What? Oh, go ahead,
thank
Dad.
you. Bye
Are you done?
bye.
Are you done, Dad? I didn't mean to
I'm
cut you off.
done. I
Okay.
love seeing Bert and Ernie.
Oh gosh, I know. See, I told you I still had them. What are you going to talk about next week? Do you know?
Well, I don't know, Mary Dana. I'll come up with something that'll be interesting.
Okay. Well, that's always true. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us. And we hope that you have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. And we will look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.